Yes. What's going on, people? Good evening and welcome to episode number 14 of the Boxing Lowdown podcast. And as always, I'm delighted to be joined by my special guest host, Laurie from AFTV. How you doing, man?
Happy New Year to you and all your followers out there, man. Big up, big up, big up.
How are you feeling, first of all?
Yeah, I'm not doing too bad, man. As you know, I had the COVID, the dreaded Rona. I did catch it along with a few.
It is real then for all the conspiracy theorists out there. Yeah, it is definitely real, right?
Listen, man, tell them conspiracy theorists to fall back, man, because this thing is real. A lot of people I think it's an insult, actually, with these people, with these constant conspiracy theories. This thing is not just real, it's very real. I'm not just talking about it from my own perspective. I mean, I got it. Thankfully, my symptoms, well, I wouldn't say they were mild, but they weren't serious. I was unwell. I was definitely unwell for a few days, but I came through it, and I'm thankful to God for that. But, you know, there are countless people out there that, I mean, even today I found out Andy Murray's contracted it. They don't come much fitter and more healthier than him. And look, he's got it. Listen, man, it's affecting people all over the world in all different spheres of life, from sportsmen to politicians to random people in the street. I just found out that one of my uncles, God bless his soul, he's actually in hospital at the moment. You know what I mean, with it, he collapsed, and they later found that he's COVID positive. So this is a very real thing. So people out there, man, it ain't no joke. You need to put them masks on, and you need to observe the rules, not do anything silly. Let's come together, man, and together, hopefully we can overcome this dreaded disease, man, and move on. Like I said, I had some very uncomfortable moments when I didn't feel myself. I wouldn't say I was really seriously ill with it, but I definitely knew that I was sick for a few days. But I pulled through. I'm here to tell the tale, and yeah, man.
It's good to have you well, man. Let's talk of boxing anyway, man. For those that are in the live stream, welcome. Hope you're all good. And feel free to drop your comments. Any questions that you have for myself or Laurie will happily answer them. So let's just get straight into it, man. Obviously, there's no boxing really to look forward to this weekend, no major events or nothing like that. But there is still news that's happening around the boxing scene. We got news today, actually, that I want to get your thoughts on. And that was Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury. Now, we know the potential obstacles for this fight. We know the potential hurdles, but we got some positive news today that a venue has been secured. I mean, Bob Arum said it on the American YouTube channel, Barbershop Conversations. I think he confirmed it on there, where he said that the venue's pretty much secure. He said that the UK timing will be good timing for us. So it's not going to be like early hours of the morning. And apparently, I don't know how true you think this is, especially at the height of a pandemic, but apparently, each fighter is going to get 100 million each. Now, that only tells me that this fight is going to be taking place in the Middle East somewhere like Saudi Arabia. But what's your thoughts on that? Do you think that, yeah, we're getting to the end goal now?
Well, what I would say about that is if Bob Arum said it, then I would say proceed with caution. Because I think it was Bob Arum who once said himself, today I'm telling the truth. Yesterday I was telling a lie. So I have to admit, I don't particularly take anything he says seriously. I wait for it to come to fruition before I start to really take it serious with that guy, because he changes his tune so many times and he's very political in what he says. So he will say one thing one day because it suits the narrative that he's trying to push, and another thing another day. So, but what I would say is, myself, like millions in this country and indeed across the world, that's the fight you want to see, man. The two best heavyweights in the world right now. They've got all the titles between them. Yeah, man, it's a massive, massive fight. And I hope it does take place sooner rather than later.
What's your breakdown? I mean, we've spoken loads of times on here over the last few weeks about will the fight happen, will it not, where it might be, or what. Let's just talk about the actual fight. And anyone in the chat, feel free to add your comments and your opinions as well. Let us know your predictions for this fight. But I'm not asking you for a prediction right now, But I just want to get your breakdown. I mean, you obviously know the sport inside out. What's your breakdown of this fight? Because you'll get the hardcores, they'll back their man all the way. They'll say Fury will batter AJ. They'll say AJ will knock out Fury. But like, in my opinion, I just see this as a fight where no one's going to have it easy. It's not going to be an easy fight for either man. But what's your thoughts on it? Like, how do you see it?
You know what? I think it's a 50-50 fight. And that's one of the reasons why this fight is so attractive. I genuinely think it's a 50-50 fight. I could understand why a lot of people would have Tyson Fury as the favorite. He's unbeaten. He had the great win against Wilder in the second fight where he looked, amazing. But AJ, you can't write him out, man. You know what I mean? He's there. He ticks a lot of boxes in terms of his punching power, his experience. And I don't think you can write him off. He's a very good all-round fighter, AJ. He may not have the sort of extrovert confidence that Tyson Fury has, but just because he doesn't shout the odds doesn't mean to say he's not confident. I mean, I've seen Tyson Fury come out and basically accuse Joshua of being scared just because he's not engaging in a lot of trash talk. But anybody who knows AJ, who's followed his career, will know that he's not a trash talker. He's one of those guys who tends to do his fighting in the ring. And that's how he's always been. So I wouldn't take from that too much. Just because he's not saying, I'm going to knock Fury out in the third round and this and that. Don't be fooled, man. Don't be fooled. Because AJ is a killer when he's ready. You know what I mean? And I think he's going to be very well prepared for this fight. He sparred with Tyson Fury before. They know each other. It won't be a secret what either of them does. And I think it's literally on the night the best man wins. The best man prepared physically and mentally will win this fight. I must admit, I'm slightly leaning towards AJ because I think he's got the tools to pull it out. He can box and he can punch. And I think he just might have the style to unseat Fury.
How does he approach it then? Because, after the Ruiz loss, there were some that were saying he was a bit gun shy after that. And naturally, because, the cause of his defeat against Andy Ruiz was that he rushed in, he got caught. And naturally, he's going to be a bit more cautious as well, especially as you get older in age as well. You're not going to be steaming in trying to take people out. You're more measured in your approach. So with Fury, how do you think he'll approach it? Because I can't see how much success it will be if he tries to stay on the back foot, maybe tries to box. Because Fury is the naturally better boxer. He's fleet-footed. He can bounce. He bounces on his toes. Probably got a better stamina as well. So what, does AJ have to attack him? I mean, if you're picking him, so what would you say he needs to do?
Yeah, I think, the tactics he adopted against Andy Ruiz, I don't think that will be effective against Fury. I think with Fury, he's going to have to try and claim center of the ring. If not all the time, he's going to have to be up in Fury's grill. He's got to establish his jab and obviously use the right hand behind that and the hooks. I think he's got the power and the arsenal and the shot selection and variation in which to really be effective in this fight. The trouble for him is he's going to have to keep it up. His level of consistency is going to have to be good because we know that Tyson Fury is a very good natural boxer. Very awkward, very tall, very rangy, and he will seek to box behind the jab. I don't see Fury coming out and really laying it on AJ, not early anyway. I see a cautious opener beginning, both fighters warming into the fight, and I think the fight will probably start to catch fire around about round 7, 8 upwards. And I think we could see a real rip-roaring, man, a grandstand finish, but I could see AJ winning. I could also see Fury winning. So I think it's close, but I'm leaning ever so slightly towards AJ on account of his better punching power and the fact that I think his motivation for this fight will be through the roof. I think Tyson Fury may be in danger of underestimating AJ in this fight, and that could be his undoing.
There's a lot of people around Fury that are in his ear, which I don't think is a good thing. Saying, Fury's going to wipe the floor with AJ, and he might. Because, I mean, you don't know. Fury, he's done things before where I just didn't expect him. I didn't expect him to wipe the floor with Wilder. I didn't expect him to dominate Klitschko the way how he did. So he is capable of doing these sort of things. But I just think going into this fight, you're correctly viewed as the favourite, in my opinion. But it's a close fight still. But I still think that those in your head just saying, "Oh, he's going to wipe the floor with him, he's going to do it." I don't know if that's really good for him, because going into this fight, Fury is defending his belt, defending it. He's actually defending it for the first time. He's never had a heavyweight title defense, even though there's still a lot to gain. But you're going in there as the favorite. People are saying you're going to wipe the floor with him. I mean, is that a good thing to have over your head? Like, should you be like looking at like, now, hold on, let's take a few steps back here. And, AJ, I can say this about him, but deep down, when we're away from the cameras, we know that we're going up against someone that is formidable as well. Do you think that that's their plan of thinking, or do you think that they really are underestimating AJ?
I think that if those people are in Tyson's ear and they are saying that and he's believing that, I think he could be in a world of trouble by doing that. Because, listen, for all the magnificence of the Wilder fight, let's not forget the Otto Wallin fight, where he was in real danger of losing that fight. In fact, really and truly, we're being honest, that fight should have been stopped on the eye cut. That was one of the worst cuts I've seen, and yet they allowed him to box on with that. And Otto Wallin was having a lot of success in that fight. So you imagine if that was AJ hitting him that regularly, that often, would he have survived? You don't know. And there's been other performances throughout Tyson's career where he's been found, he's been found and hit and decked. Steve Cunningham was cruiserweight decked him, Even going back in the day, he had very uncomfortable moments with Stan McDermott, He's not unbeatable, Fury is, He is capable of raising his game. He is a very talented boxer. We all know that. We all know about his levels of confidence are through the roof, which makes him a very dangerous operator. But I think AJ, man, has the tools there to do damage, and I think he could do. And on any given day, he could easily win this fight.
What about Fury? What about Fury's tools? What's AJ got to look out for? Because you look at Fury now, like I said, like he's shown that he can box on the back foot magnificently against Wilder in the first fight, other than when he got caught. In the second fight, he's shown that he can pull it on you, like step to you, throw the right hand, and display power and great ability on the front foot. So for AJ now, what worries me about him is like his stamina, for one. It hasn't always held out the best for him in the later rounds. How much can he afford to take a breather when he's fighting somebody like Fury? Mentally, he's going to have to be switched on, and that can be fatiguing as well. There's that. I think that Fury, he's awkward. He's going to provide angles. He's like, it's amazing somebody his size, how big he is, the way how he's able to move around the ring, punch the way he does, throw punches from different angles. This sort of thing, is it going to be troubling for AJ? You can be a bit upright. His chin it's not got a dodgy chin, but it's not the best chin. So like, can you see what's he got to worry about from Fury?
Well, I think with Fury is that his boxing skills are of a level that, AJ's got to be careful that he doesn't give up a lot of rounds. Because what typically tends to happen with Tyson Fury, if you look at a lot of his fights, he will posture and pose and flick out a few jabs and make himself awkward to hit. And before you know it, you've lost a round against him, you know what I mean? So that's what AJ has got to be careful of, losing rounds early and allowing Tyson Fury to build up amount of rounds in the bank that he maybe have difficulty clawing back later. So that's what I was saying. He's got to be on it from the first bell. He's got to take the fight to Fury. Yes, he will lose some rounds, but he's got to be putting in work, man. Investing in going to the body, slowing Fury down, using the jab, getting inside, roughing him up, and hitting him with good shots. Breaking him down, basically. Because like I said, Tyson Fury, although he is a good defensive boxer, but he can be hit and he can be dropped. And I think AJ's got the level of consistency. He's got the jab. He's got the right hand. He's got a very, very good uppercut, as we've seen. So, yeah, AJ ticks all the boxes, man. He's got the heart. You know what I mean? He'll be in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because any given day, I think AJ could beat him. I really do.
Yeah, you got Mohammed Zishan in the chat here. Big up, bro. Thank you for the comment. He's put, I see AJ stopping Fury. So, yeah, he can see as well. But I think for everyone who you see with AJ winning, I think the majority of people think Fury going to win. And I mean, he is he will go down as the odds-on favourite. But I definitely do think, even if Fury is the favourite, this talk about he's going to wash AJ, I just can't see it, man. It's going to be a hard fight for both men.
Yeah, it will. It will. It will. It will be a grueling fight. Although, having said that, it might not be the most entertaining fight for the opening. I would imagine that opening rounds are going to be quite cautious, quite tactical, quite strategic. But at some point, the fight will catch fire. But like I said, if AJ's going to win, he's got to establish a level of consistency with the jab. He's got to make sure he stays close to Fury, doesn't allow him too much time to posture and pose and to do that stuff that he does, and fainting and, you know what I mean, and stuff like that, and allow himself to fall behind on points. He's got to take the fight to Fury. If he can do that, I think he's got a great chance. I really do. Although, as I said earlier, you would have to make Fury the favourite based on their records and the fact that Fury's unbeaten and stuff like that. So, yeah, great fight though. It could go either way.
Sorry, yeah, carry on.
Yeah, it could go either way. I could even see a controversial win for one or the other. You know what I mean? It could be one of those where it's how you interpret the action as to who gets the win. It could be one of them whereby not too much is happening, and then AJ comes on a storm and stops him. Because like I said, Fury's hit the floor a few times. And so, you know, his defense is not impregnable. So, and neither is his AJ, to be honest. He's hit the floor as well. So, you know what I mean? It's one of them, man, where it's up for grabs. It literally is, in my opinion, who turns up the best prepared on the night, not just physically, but mentally as well.
Yeah. Well, big up Conrad Boxing in the chat here. Thank you, bro, for your comment. He's put, AJ needs to be 100% sharp in there. May not let Fury off the hook like he did with Pulev, as there may be only a single opportunity against Fury. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that he might...
Different. I don't think he did let Pulev off the hook that much, really. I think he was in control of that fight for the whole duration. He was never in danger.
Yeah, but the third round, he's probably speaking about ending it from the third, you know, and then it went to the ninth.
Yeah, but he was always in control, man. I mean, he decked him heavily. In fact, that fight could have been stopped because Pulev had turned his back. You know what I mean? So he should really have been stopped in that round. I've since seen stuff from Pulev where here we go again on the boxer's excuse roundabout. He's now saying that he had COVID-19 in the lead up to the fight. Here we go. Is there ever going to be a boxer that loses and just says, you know what, I lost to the better man, if only for that night? Because you haven't got to say he's the better fighter.
To be fair, AJ did that when he lost to Ruiz.
What do we say? I lost to the better man on the night. Keep it moving. All this stuff with I had COVID, you know what I mean? Bob Arum didn't like me because I'm Eastern European, or my trainer poisoned my water bottle. And, you know what I mean? It's just a joke, man. Boxing, and this is something that I need to get off my chest, man. There's just so much things in boxing at the moment that it's just so frustrating, man, with the way these guys act after they've had a loss. The amount of ducking that's going on in boxing, the amount of cherry picking. We've seen it again this week. Carl Frampton cherry picking Jamel Herring for a title shot. It's just, it's crazy, man. Seriously, somebody needs to get hold of boxing and just, I don't know, man. I don't know. It's just crazy right now. I don't know what your viewers think about that. Maybe they can write in and tell you, man. But boy, there's just so much things that's frustrating me about boxing right now. And that's why I said, until those two guys actually get in the ring, I'm not wholly confident that this fight's going to get made anyway. Like I said, I'm not
still in doubt. Still in doubt it gets made.
Yeah, until them two, because listen, you still got Wilder in the wings saying that he's going to take Fury to court if he doesn't get his title shot. So that may have a bearing on it. You know, you just don't know, do you? Boxing is that type of animal where you just don't know. It's very unpredictable.
Got a comment here from Born Again Biker. He said, Fury only fights well when he has quality fighters against him. So what he's referring to is probably what you said about Otto Wallin, where he didn't perform that night, but he still got the victory. Whereas when he's needed to step it up, he's delivered. I mean, Wilder in the first fight, Wilder in the second fight, and then obviously Klitschko. So this is another challenge in itself against AJ. But what my question to you, Born Again Biker, is like what I said to Laurie earlier, is with everybody in Fury's ear saying, oh, this is an easy fight. Oh, this is going to be like, he's going to wash him. He's going to do this. is that a bad thing? Because then will Fury be underestimating him where he doesn't perform? Or do you think that Fury will be switched on due to how big this fight is?
I think Fury will be switched on. And I do agree, born again biker to a degree, is that Fury is capable of raising his game, but so is AJ. What I would say about all that is it's the mental rather than the physical. So what I'm saying is that often you will see with fighters, they will tell you, listen, man, I've trained so hard for this guy. I've never felt in better shape physically. But in the back of their mind, they're thinking, I'm going to beat this guy. So it can work both ways. It can work well for you insofar as you have a certain level of confidence that you're going to beat the guy in front of you. However, if you're overconfident, even just by a few percent, to the point where you're kind of looking past him mentally, that's where the danger can set in. Because if you think you're going to go in there and blow AJ away, and he's still there after 6, 7, 8, and he's coming on strong, then what? What is your plan B? You know, if plan A is not working. And that's what I'm saying, man. I think that AJ is going to be coming into this fight with the hunter mentality, and I think that could be crucial in a fight like this. I really do.
Yeah.
So he's going to be a dangerous animal in there, man. As long as he's there standing, pitching, he's going to be dangerous. And we, like I said, we know he's capable of hurting Fury with either hand as well. So you know, I mean, you can't write him out, not at all, not by a long way.
Yeah, I think that's the thing for me. Like, just the complacency. If he is complacent at all, I mean, Fury is a professional, so I mean, surely he wouldn't be. But it's just the people around. I don't know if it's just talk, just to get clicks and stuff like that. But just the whole like, oh, it's going to be easy, it's going to be that. If you allow that to get inside your mental, then that's where I think he may have an issue. But let's keep it moving, man. I want to get your thoughts on the announcement of Chris Eubank Jr. this week, who has signed a long-term promotional deal with the Sauerland brothers. Eubank Jr. has been out of the ring since December 2019. That was a 2-round job against Matt Korobov. Obviously, Korobov injured himself in the second round, so he didn't really get many rounds in there. His last fight before that was against James DeGale. That was in January, February of that year. So he's been very inactive, but he signed this new long-term deal with the Sauerland brothers now. Let me get your thoughts on that, as well as the interview that he did with IFL yesterday, where he was literally like shaming Kell Brook, Liam Williams, calling them tune-up fights and saying that he's looking for the big names at middleweight. Like, what's your thoughts on the whole situation?
Well, first of all, I was somewhat surprised, as you may have been, to learn that he'd signed with the Sauerlands, considering he'd been signed up pretty much to the PBC. So you would have thought, all things being equal, that him having relocated in America and training with Roy Jones and being signed up to the PBC, that he could have got some decent fights out there. I mean, he got the Korobov fight. Has to be said, I watched that fight, although it only went 2 rounds. He didn't look great in those 2 rounds. Really? Only 2 rounds. But there was talk of him fighting Jamal Charlo, which would have been an excellent fight. He would have struggled to win that fight, I've got to say. But I'm sure he would have give a good account of himself, win, lose or draw. So for him to then take the Sauerland route, so you've got to wonder, who's he going to fight? I mean, names have been put forward like Ryota Murata.
He's been promoted as the new WBA champion now.
Names, a possible fight with Golovkin. But to hear him calling out people like Kell Brook, I mean, come on, bro. Kell Brook is a welterweight, junior middle at the absolute most. And Kell is coming to the twilight years of his career. I'm pretty sure nobody wants to see Chris Eubank Jr. fight Kell Brook. Now, the fight with Liam Williams makes sense, if he can get that. That's a very good fight, because Liam Williams is in great form at the moment. He's got incredible self-belief in himself. You only got to see some of the interviews going around on the net at the moment. See that Liam Williams has reinvented himself as this monster, apparently. And he's talking a lot of trash. He believes in himself. But crucially, he's been backing up in his performances in the ring recently have been very good. And I think that's a very, very good fight. I wouldn't rule Liam Williams out in that fight either, man, because let's face it, when Chris has stepped up, he has shown vulnerabilities, not so much in the physical sense, but in his boxing ability. He can be outboxed. We've seen it many times. Well, not many times. But we've seen it when he's stepped up to that next level. And you can't really read too much into the De Gea performance because De Gea was clearly past his best. I mean, listen, man, De Gea had lost to Caleb Truax before that and then got a win against him after that. But he wasn't the same James De Gea. You know what I mean? He's not the same James brash, braggadocious, flashy, swagger kid as I used to call him back in the day. By the time Eubank caught up with him, he was a shell of that type of fighter. So in many ways, we still don't really know how good Chris Eubank Jr. is. But I would say that he's definitely not elite.
Gonna pause you there for a second. We've just got some breaking news here. I want to get your instant reaction live on the podcast. And those that are in the chat, feel free to comment this as well. But Sergey Kovalev has reportedly tested positive for synthetic testosterone in a VADA test. That's according to Dan Raphael. That's breaking news. So,
why am I
reaction to that? He's due to fight, isn't he, Kovalev?
Yeah.
So he's tested positive for a banned substance.
Yeah, well, why am I not?
I'm not even surprised. I'm not
surprised about the news that a top fighter has tested positive, and I'm certainly not surprised with Kovalev. The way he lives his life, both inside and outside the ring, is hardly what you would call a consummate professional. So I'm not surprised at all. And we've got a real problem in the sport now with performance-enhancing drugs. I mean, I speak to a lot of journalists, and at least one of those journalists have said to me off the record, Laurie, it's not a case of who's on it. It's a case these days of who's not on it. You know what I mean? And this guy is a well-renowned, established journalist. I'm not going to give his name for obvious reasons. But he said to me all along, man, that PEDs in boxing is a big, big problem. And I remember a few weeks ago on your show, a lot of people were surprised when we talked about our pound-for-pound lists. Mm-hmm. And I admitted Canelo, not on account of his boxing ability and his record and stuff like that. But I just said, quite simply, I would feel very uncomfortable about putting somebody as my number one pound-for-pound fighter who's a two-time convicted drugs cheat, as Canelo is. That's the scale of the problem in boxing right now, man, to go with all the other litany of problems as well, man. Sometimes it's hard to defend us supporting this sport the way we do. Sometimes I think it doesn't deserve the fans it gets. So, yeah, man, I mean, Kovalev has got a history of transgressing both inside and outside the ring. So this has come as absolutely no surprise to me at all. And, you know, he lost badly to Canelo. He's clearly not the fighter he was. And maybe he's in the last throes of his career and he felt that he needed some artificial boost. Who knows, he might have been on it from time as well. So probably was, to be honest.
He was on a bit of a hiding to nothing anyway.
Get found out. It's a bit like shoplifters, isn't it? Guy gets caught nicking at Tesco's. It's very unlikely it's the first time he's tried to nick that bottle of whiskey, you know what I mean? He's probably been doing it for a long, long time. It's just that the other times he just didn't get caught. So there you go.
How do we clean this up? What do we need to do? Like, we've got the VADA Pro. It's good that these fighters are getting caught because obviously it means that it's working. But how are we going to prevent this stuff from going on in the future? I mean, the only way, I'll let you share your opinion, but it's never going to happen. But the only way is to have like a central governing body, like that will be able to just mandate like life bans or whatever on this sort of thing. But how do we eradicate this from the sport? Because it's rife.
Well, you hit the nail on the head there. First and foremost, there's got to be bans. And when I say bans, I'm not talking about, you know, little token bans like what Canelo got, 6 months. And then they raised the level of clenbuterol so that he can pass future tests, which was scandalous, by the way. It's got to be.
The problem with banning is that,
man, or, you know, if a guy transgresses for the second time, he's got to be banned for life. I mean, look at what happened with Jarrell Miller, and he's preparing for a fight soon, I hear. You know what I mean? Guy had cocktails of drugs in his system. He's been caught about 2 or 3 times. Apparently he was caught cheating when he was doing mixed martial arts previously as well. You know, and then these guys, you know, they get caught. It's hard enough to catch these guys because apparently what I'm hearing, and I hear it from good sources, is that the boxers and the people who are behind them who are taking these PEDs, their science is ahead of the testers. So the type of synthetic drugs they're taking, the way they can cycle on and off, they're only getting caught if they've fucked up or made a mistake. And then when they do get caught now, the boxing authorities are not sufficiently stringent with their bans and their punishments. So they're serving token bans and then they're back in the fray again.
The issue is, it's like
excuses about I ate tainted meat, or, you know, what was it Kid Galahad said? His brother, he had an argument with his brother and his brother poisoned his food. And then he had a very token ban and he's back. And he's back at the top of boxing as well, Kid Galahad. Do you know what I mean?
Is the intent,
is there no positive test coming out of the Ingle gym as well? Billy Joe Saunders. You know what I mean? So it's right.
The intent. It's the intent. How do you measure the intent? Because we're supposed to ban someone for life. Someone could say, oh, well, you know, it wasn't I didn't knowingly do this. And how do we know 100%? I mean, we have our doubts, of course, but is it straight, if you're guilty, you're guilty? Or is it like, look, this person might have had a contaminated thing. He might have accidentally taken a nasal spray, which has got a fraction of it. Like, how do we measure it?
Well, what you can do, listen, at the end of the day, you're an athlete. You are responsible for what goes in and out of your body. That is your personal responsibility. You sign up to that the minute you sign as a professional. That is understood. Yeah. Now, granted, there could be mistakes. You may have got an over-the-counter supplement and you may not be aware that the supplement that you're taking, there's some ingredients in there that have raised your levels by X amount that's caused you to fail a test. I'm not saying that these things shouldn't be taken into consideration, but I'm saying that guys who have cheated more than once, they should definitely be banned for life. That should be understood. Yeah, I know that sounds harsh, but that should be understood. That way, if you get caught, you come up with some mitigation, you get punished, okay, your mitigation should be taken into account. But if you do so again or do similar again, that should be it, man. You should either be a significant ban or you're banned for life. The more egregious cases should be bans for life, you know? So until the boxing authorities take that type of stance, boxers, you know what I mean, the stakes are so high for a lot of them that, you know what I mean, they will look at it like, well, it's a risk worth taking. I'm sure that's how they look at it. And like I said, when it comes to the science of this stuff, they consider themselves ahead of the testers. They've got people in their ears saying, listen, man, you can cycle on and off and the risk of you getting caught is minimal. And if you do get caught, all you do is you say, I ate some tainted meat, or I fell out with my brother and he poisoned me and I didn't know. And the list of excuses, man, just goes on and on. But at the end of the day, these guys are cheating. And boxing, unlike athletics and sports like that, football, when you cheat, the kind of advantage that you're gaining, it could prove fatal. You know what I mean? So Tyson Fury is convicted drugs cheater. Now, look, he's about to engage in the richest heavyweight title fight possibly of all time. You ask yourself, what was his punishment really? I mean, here he is about to, like I said, contest in a title unification fight. And the money that we're talking about here is astronomical. So one could argue, did he get his proper punishments for him failing? No.
This is the comment here from Conrad Boxing as well. He said, casual fans love to watch those steroid boxers beating everyone up. So, and literally, as I've just said that, I've just got a note here. So literally what we were just talking about with intent, surprise, surprise, Kathy Duva's come out and she said, Kovalev did not purposely ingest any banned substances despite testing positive. Let's see what else she had to say, actually.
I've got a question for you, yeah? I've got a question for you. Have you ever heard of a boxer come out and admit, yes, I cheated? Have you ever in all your life?
No, never.
None of them are going to say that, are they? They're all going to say, oh, I didn't know.
Even Miller's still saying it. Yeah. Didn't mean to do it. There's a conspiracy has been set up.
Say that I cheated, and yes, I did wrong. I think there was only one guy that I can remember in this country. And I think as part of his rebuttal, I think he, not rebuttal, it's not the right word, is it? But as part of his defense, he claimed he was doing it because there are other guys doing it. And he then went on to give names of a lot of people that he thought were also taking drugs.
At least he's honest.
Larry Olabaminwell, I think he was a fighter, yeah. But, you know, the vast majority of these guys will never admit to doing anything wrong.
Let's move on and talk about two guys that have tested positive for banned substances in the past, and that's Dillian Whyte and Alexander Povetkin. Now, these two are set for a rematch on March the 6th. That was announced this week from Eddie Hearn. I think he's going to do a full announcement of his upcoming shows tomorrow. So anybody interested, tune in for that. But Dillian Whyte, Alexander Povetkin 2, confirmed for March the 6th. You know, like your instant reaction to that, your thoughts on it. I know you're saying that Dillian Whyte needs to be careful, but what's your thoughts going into it, man? Are you excited about it, first of all?
Well, my first thoughts is that, like you said, two fighters that's had issues with PEDs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As much as I like Dillian, man, we can't escape the fact that he's been mired in controversy more than once. There was the first one with the over-the-counter supplement he took. And then there was the second one, more serious. It was an allegation. It wasn't really proved, with the Oscar Rivas fight, when apparently he failed a drugs test, was allowed to fight, and his drugs test that had proved positive was unbeknownst to his opponent at that time, which really is quite scandalous. When you
shocking, yeah, that's shocking.
If that is true, then again, that is a real black mark for boxing. But in terms of the fight, yep, and Povetkin as well, he's had various issues with
multiple.
Yeah, with performance-enhancing drugs. Most notably, is it Meldonium or whatever it's one? Meldonium, that's the one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Serial cheat. You know what I mean? So I guess you could say that with the two of them having had issues, the playing ground is leveled. I don't know, man, but it's a very murky world. But in terms of the actual fight, man, I'm going to repeat what I said to you previously. It's a very dangerous fight for Dillian, man. Very dangerous fight. Literally, his career is on the line here, because if he loses again to Povetkin, especially if he's KO'd, it's difficult to see where he goes from here. So he's got to win. I think he might pull out the win. I think he might box a lot more carefully this time, box behind his jab, keep his hands up, choose not to engage.
He was doing that the first time, though.
He was also letting his hands go. He was also letting his hands go a lot more. He might have to adopt a Anthony Joshua style performance. But then, to be fair to Joshua, in that fight, man, he did a lot of moving. And I'm not sure if Dillian's got the feet. I
don't think he's got that in him. No, he has not the feet, not the footwork.
So I think what we might see is Dillian just try and use the jab, keep his hands up, hold when he has to, and just try and nullify the threat. And hope that Povetkin is aging ever more by the time they get in the ring. Because listen, man, if Povetkin catches him again, which, let's face it, man, he's got 12 rounds to do it. He doesn't have to be ahead on the cards, as he proved last time. He could go, man. Very risky fight for Dillian, man. It's 50-50.
Yeah, it's
60-40 to Povetkin, really.
It's Dillian Whyte's punch resistance, and I've got a comment here. You're going to love this comment because it's literally what you've said all the time. But Dillian Whyte's punch resistance, man, is he? No, I'm not like disrespecting, but against AJ, like, has his punch resistance gone like reduced over the years? Because AJ, he was taking some hellacious shots. Since then, he's been dropped by Parker, been dropped by Rivas, got knocked out by Povetkin. It didn't seem like he was that sort of chinny sort of guy again. I mean, these guys can punch, but I don't know. Like,
I think that the punch that knocked him out, that Povetkin threw in that last fight, I think that would have knocked most fighters out, if not down. Most of them would have been knocked out. So I don't think you can hold that up as an example of saying that he's chinny because of that, to be fair to him.
What about Rivas?
Apart from the AJ fight, when he's been knocked down or hurt, he has come back quite strongly. So you have to give him credit for that. But naturally, what tends to happen is over the years, especially in the heavyweights, you know, I mean, you're fighting guys that are big guys, big punching guys. And if you're in a series of grueling fights, plus I heard that Dillian likes to spar hard. That over the years, you know what I mean, it can take its toll. I mean, we've seen what happens with Derek Chisora. He's been knocked out a few times, but he's still battle ready, tough guy. You know what I mean? So on any given night, he can go the distance, but on the reverse to that, on any given night, he could go if he's hit right. I think it can happen with a big guy. Like I said, Fury's been down multiple times. AJ's been dropped. They've pretty much all been dropped. Wilder's been dropped. You know what I mean? It's heavyweight boxing, man. I think that's why the fans like heavyweight boxing so much. So I wouldn't say he's especially chinny, although I would say he does have significant wear and tear on it.
Here's a comment that you're going to like, because this is what you say all the time. But Conrad Boxon said here, as much as I love this fight, it's ridiculous to have a rematch clause for a challenger position. Hearn has way too much power and doesn't respect the sport.
Well, there are parts of that I agree with. I wouldn't say he doesn't respect the sport, but he does have a lot of power. Some would argue that it's too much. But what I would definitely agree with Conrad there is when he talks about these rematch clauses in boxing. I mean, the first fight was for an eliminator for a title, right? And Povetkin won that fight conclusively. Yes, he may have been behind on the scorecards at the time that he landed that knockout punch. But once he landed that punch, man, there was no arguments. You know what I mean? It wasn't controversial in any way. He was a conclusive winner. He knocked Dillian cold. Now, why do you need to have a rematch if you're Povetkin, especially if you're Povetkin? Okay, I can see why Dillian would want a rematch. I can see why Eddie Hearn will think that it's a viable proposition and he'll make money and there'll be a lot of interest in the fight. But if you're Povetkin and you're working your way into a number one position to challenge for a title, why do you need to give this man a rematch? I can only imagine that he's been offered a big bag to come here again in March, because I'm pretty sure he would have pursued other options first. In fact,
there was a rematch clause in the contract, right?
Yeah. In fact, I was hearing between the lines, and I don't know how true this is. Like I said, people I speak to in the game was telling me that when Povetkin had his positive COVID test, he was talking quite openly that he didn't want to have the rematch anyway. So maybe what's happened is, in order to entice him into taking the rematch, they've offered him a big bag, like I said. Because really and truly, man, there is no real need for a rematch. You know what I mean? Because he had the eliminator and he starched Dillian. It's as simple as that. The whole world saw it. So there should only be rematches if there's a great degree of controversy, say, for example, on the cards or something else untoward happens. You know what I mean? But
guess you say Eddie Hearn's protecting his investment. It's not right, but that's what he's doing, isn't it?
He's protecting his investment and he's also milking it, really, because he's seeing, well, you know, people will watch it. They will pay money to see this again, when really and truly shouldn't really happen that way, should it? Povetkin should go on and fight for a title now. He's earned that position.
Ideally, yeah.
And this is why boxing has so much of a problem, because there's too many vested interests. So what I'm saying is Povetkin has been denied his title shot because Eddie Hearn's put up a bag and said, yeah, rematch Dillian. But the natural order of things should have been that Povetkin goes on to fight for a title. And when you think about it,
he used to sell the first fight.
The other guys behind you by doing this. The other guys behind Povetkin who want to fight to earn themselves a position for the title, when you think about it, their progress has been stalled because they're going to have to wait now for the outcome of this rematch. So if Dillian wins hypothetically speaking, if they have to fight and Dillian wins a controversial decision, or even a decision that Povetkin doesn't particularly like, he might say, well, I thought I wanted to fight, I want a rematch. You know what I mean? So then, you know, what do we do? Never-ending rematches.
Conrad here said, Hearn does not seem to respect Usyk's mandatory status either. All that sums it up for me, but a different topic. Yeah, it's just down to money, isn't it, man? AJ's
Conrad makes.
AJ's his number one fighter. The biggest fight in boxing that can be made is obviously against Fury. Usyk's kind of, I guess, they're looking at him as he's in the way. You know, I mean, he's got that mandatory. Really, you can't really fault the WBO because they're just upholding their policies. You know what I mean? Even though we don't really want it, but it's just what they do. That's why I like the IBF, because the IBF are the strictest when it comes to their mandatories, even if some of their mandatories are questionable, like that guy that fought Triple G the other day. But, yeah, I get it. But it's just money, isn't it, man? Money runs the world, runs the sport. It is. That's what it is, isn't it?
There's just so much wrong with boxing at the moment, man. It's just it's unfathomable, and I don't know how we escape the clutches of this type of thing. There's so much greed, avarice, ducking. You know what I mean? It's just it's a cesspool, man. It's a cesspool. Listen, as much as we love the sport, we've all got to admit it, man. There's just so much vested interest going on that it works against the sport in many ways. But yet we still put up with it, man. You know what I mean? It's a guilty pleasure for many of us.
Well, speaking of ducking, that's what you have. Well, let me get to this question first, actually. Before I get onto that, before I finish what I say, I'll get onto this question from Mohammed Ahmed. He said, let me ask this question. Do you think Team White and Matchroom would have given Povetkin a chance if they never had a rematch? If you want a chance without bringing something to the table?
Of course they wouldn't. That's what I'm saying. Of course they would. If Dillian had won that fight in the same fashion that Povetkin had won, do you think, even if Povetkin had been lobbied for a rematch, do you think he would have got that? Of course he wouldn't have got that.
Yeah, no chance.
I mean, this is all about money and business and vested interests, you know what I mean? And as much as, you know, Dillian's a British fighter and we want him to win and all the rest of it, he hasn't earned a rematch, has he? He got knocked cold. Since when did getting knocked cold earn you a rematch? Normally, it just means people laugh at you, you know what I mean? But on this occasion, he's managed to get a rematch. Fair play to Dillian. They're going to fight. People are going to watch it. I have to say, I'll probably end up watching it. But really and truly, it shouldn't happen that way, man. He was soundly beaten, conclusively beaten, knocked out cold. What is in you getting knocked out cold that, listen, if he'd have won every round up until the 12th, and he literally got hit with a shot in the last minute of the last round and got knocked out because he failed to get up at the count of 10, he was tired, and I could understand. Even then, I would be probably against it, but I could understand that more. But as I keep saying, man, Dillian was beaten conclusively. He was knocked out cold in an eliminator for a world title. So the person that inflicted that defeat on him should go on and fight for the title. There should be no more rematch. Because like I said, you're putting that guy through that again. Okay, you're paying him a big bag, but you're putting him through that again. But what about all the people behind Povetkin who are waiting for their chance? That's stalling their careers.
Yeah. It's an issue in boxing, and another issue that you've highlighted there before I went to that question was about ducking. Now, we spoke about this off camera. I want you to bring this on camera as well, because I want to hear what other people have to say about it. But you're speaking about the lightweight division. Now, the lightweight division is exciting right now. Everybody's talking about it. You know, Ryan Garcia defeating Luke Campbell, Teofimo Lopez, and so on, so on. But you were telling me that you think there's some ducking going on in that division. So if you want to
know what's going on in that division, and it all started right after Ryan Garcia had that great win over Luke Campbell. So you know, hey, he was a great win for him. He got off the floor. He beat Luke Campbell conclusively in the end. He's a young, bright talent. But then immediately after the fight, you saw the kind of dick riding that was going on that actually was almost physically making me sick. Chris Mannix was putting the camera in front of Ryan Garcia. And don't forget, you know, he didn't win a title. This is what a lot of people seem to be forgetting when they're saying, oh, a new star is born, all the rest of it. Ryan Garcia did not win a title that night. It was an eliminator fight, yeah? And he won it. Right after the fight, Chris Mannix in the post-fight interviews telling Ryan Garcia, you know, he's not even asking him any questions. He's saying to him, Ryan, you are the shot caller. You don't have to fight. You calling the shots. You're fighting who you want to fight. They got to come look for you. When I heard that, man, I was like, this is everything that's wrong with the sport. You're basically encouraging Ryan Garcia now to duck Devin Haney, which is exactly what the guy did. All this calling out a Tank. Tank is not even a lightweight. Tank is not a lightweight. He doesn't have a title, right? You fought Luke Campbell in an eliminator for the title. And the reason why you fought Luke Campbell is because if you remember, when Devin Haney, okay, people are saying he's an email champion, they gave him the belt, but people need to do their history. Why was Devin Haney crowned the email champion? It's because Lomachenko did not want to fight him. He gave up the opportunity to fight him, and rather than strip Lomachenko, they gave the belt to Devin Haney. So now this fight here with Luke Campbell versus Ryan Garcia. The winner of that fight is supposed to fight Devin Haney, right? Ryan Garcia comes through, he wins. Great, listen, more power to him, man. He did his thing. I'm not knocking him for that at all, right? But that should be the fight you're focusing on. You're telling everybody you want to fight Tank, which, to be honest with you, I think he's clout chasing. I don't even think he really wants that fight deep down. He knows that fight's not going to happen next, yeah? Even though it is a good fight. But come on. You fought an eliminator for Devin Haney's title, right? For some reason, now you won, you're going in the other direction. So what was the point of having that eliminator then?
Totally agree. Totally agree.
You got Teofimo, who I'm equally critical of, right? Yes, you got 3 of the belts, right? But you need this belt that Devin Haney's got to solidify yourself as the unified champion. You're saying you don't need to fight him, this and that. You're fighting other guys, and he's later been found to have lied. He said he made Devin Haney an offer when his own promoter, Bob Arum, Teofimo's own promoter, has come out and said that's nonsense. He wouldn't have any right to do that anyway. It would be me that makes the offers. And he said he's not made Devin Haney an offer. And if you listen to the body language, it's clear that Teofimo Lopez does not want to fight Devin Haney. You could see that, man. You could just see the body language, see the stuff that's coming from his mouth. And this is the kind of stuff that really gets me upset, man, in boxing. You know what I mean? It's just ducking that's going on.
Yeah, and the problem is that
ducking, cherry picking, and peg taking, man, ruining the sport of boxing.
The problem is as well is that people are going to say, "Oh, well, Devin Haney ain't fought anyone. He needs to prove himself. He ain't done nothing. But how is he supposed to do something if he can't get these fights?"
Exactly. To be fair to Devin Haney, he's calling for all of the. He was calling for the Lomachenko fight. See, this is what a lot of people who maybe casuals who don't really follow the sport that much, they may not know. So forgive them if they don't know. But listen, I can assure them that Devin Haney was calling up Lomachenko even before Teofimo was. It's just that he didn't get the fight. Teofimo is connected with Bob Arum, top rank, yeah. So is Lomachenko. So it's easier for them to make that fight. Teofimo got the fight. He beat Lomachenko. Fair play. It was a great win. I even said at the time it was a great win. I even said that he should be given Fighter of the Year for that, which he was in the end. Yeah. So I've got no issue with that. But now you should be seeking to solidify your status, unify the belts, right? But instead of that, you're talking all this other stuff. I've got to get 10 million to fight him. He's not doing it. But still you're raging to fight George Kambosos, an Australian guy that's nowhere near the level of Devin Haney. Yeah. Ducking, man. Ducking. And I'm not saying that he's scared of Devin Haney. Notice how I didn't say that, because I don't believe a lot of these fighters are scared. I just think that it's all about self-preservation and trying to avoid the most difficult fights. So you're willing to go to Australia and fight George Kambosos, right? A fight that you're expected to win, that no doubt he probably will win.
He's a mandatory though, right?
He's a mandatory, but why not you seek it to unify the belts?
Got a question here from
even if he said, right, I'll fight Kambosos first and Devin Haney's next. That sounds better, doesn't it? But when you're coming out of all this, he doesn't deserve to fight me. He's an email champion. I want 10 million. Come on, man.
Conrad said here.
That's just another word for ducking. And like I said, Garcia, why are you calling out Tank? He's not even a lightweight. The eliminator was to fight Devin Haney. So that should be your first port of call. Devin Haney. Forget about Tank, because that fight's probably not going to happen anyway.
Conrad said here, do you want these guys fighting each other now or when they're in their prime? No, let them fight now, man.
Listen, man, my thing is this, right? My thing, forget about prime or whether you reach your prime or whether you're over the. Once you've got a belt, you are no longer a prospect or that anymore. You've got a belt, you're a world champion. You need to conduct yourself as such. Sugar Ray Leonard and Tommy Hearns were fighting each other in super fights and they were like 22, 23 years old. You know what I mean? The same age as these guys are now. You know what I mean? You go back in history, that's how they did it. A guy has a belt, another guy has a belt, you seek to unify. You know what I mean? All this merry-go-round, choosing guys and all that stuff. Like I said earlier, we've seen it with Carl Frampton. He's looked at the landscape and selected who he thinks is the least talented of those champions, Jamel Herring, and he's gone after him. And now he's landed the fight. If he wins the fight, which he's expected to do, people are going to wax lyrical and call him a three-time champion, this and that. But I'm looking at that and I'm saying, yo, come on, man. Come on, Carl Frampton. You shamelessly ducked Rigondeaux, right? You shamelessly ducked Gary Russell Jr. You shamelessly ducked Shakur Stevenson, and you've gone for Jamel Herring. And then you're going to run around calling yourself a world champion. Come on, man. It's a joke. It's an absolute joke, man. And people should be cognizant of this, and they should speak out against it. And we should get rid of people like Chris Mannix telling Ryan Garcia, oh, you haven't got to fight this guy. They've got to come to you now. Why? You won an eliminator. You're not a champion. It's not like you're a world champion. It's not like you're a world champion and you've made 5-6 defenses. Then you've afforded that status, if you like. You know what I mean? You're there saying to this guy, putting words in his mouth, you're the shot caller. Why are you the shot caller? What, because you got millions of fans on Instagram? What's that mean in boxing terms? Has he sold out any arenas yet? Has he done 1 million pay-per-views? Why is he the shot caller? What, because he's a good-looking kid? What's going on here, man? What's Chris Mannix? I mean, it's a little suspect, that kind of talk, bro. Like I said, when I heard him do that, I was disgusted.
Shane Willoughby here in the comments, he's put, yeah, we spoke about this already, Shane. We spoke about it earlier, and I haven't seen the Insta yet, obviously, because I'm on here. But yeah, I did see, we spoke about that briefly. But going back to Chris Mannix, you know what's funny as well is that Devin Haney is part of the zone as well. He's part of the same, you know what I mean? And it was acting like he wasn't even there. The guy was there in the crowd.
It was very disrespectful. It was very disrespectful, man. And I felt for Devin Haney, you know what I mean? I felt for him because whatever you want to say about Devin Haney, so far anyway, he's showing me that he wants those fights. That should be something in this day and age that should be applauded. But instead of that, you've got Chris Mannix telling Ryan Garcia, no, you haven't got to fight these guys. You're the shot caller. You do what you want. What, on the strength of winning an eliminator?
Yeah, I think people are getting that twisted now, man.
You got dropped hard. On another given night against a more confident fighter, a guy that came with more purpose to win, he probably would have got beaten that night. But, you know, he won the fight. And like I said, credit to him. He came through his first big test. I'm not so sure it was with flying colours, but he came through it and he got a good win. So I'm not knocking that. And I'm not saying that Ryan Garcia is not a very good fighter. He's definitely showed himself to have potential to be a top fighter. There's no doubt about it. But he's not there yet. So why are you lauding this guy and telling him, oh, they've all got to come to you. You're the shot. It was, seriously, I can't tell you how annoyed I was when I was witnessing that, man. It was really something that really sickened me from a boxing perspective.
I can tell. But one thing I'll say is, like, we're not innocent with that either. With Sky Sports, we do it as well. Like, with our fighters. We're not as bad as Chris Mannix, but we do it. We do it as well. Like, we have to be real.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. And that's what I said about boxing. It's successful because it's full of sharks. It's full of self-interest, people anointing people a certain way. We spoke on the show, was it last week or a couple of weeks ago, about women's boxing and the way Katie Taylor's been lauded as the, you know what I mean, the face of women's boxing and pound for pound, the greatest woman fighter ever. Absolute nonsense. Anybody that follows women's boxing even a little bit will tell you that Clarissa Shields is the most talented woman in boxing. And I feel so sorry for that girl. Now she's having to go to MMA because she's gone on record as saying that with boxing, despite my record, the fact that I'm a 2-time gold medalist, I'm an unbeaten fighter, multiple world title wins, I'm not getting the credit or the purses I deserve. She's having to go to MMA. And over this side of the pond, Katie Taylor, who again is a good fighter, a very good fighter, actually. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to diminish her credentials. All I'm saying is Katie Taylor, is no way is she the best women's boxer around. She's been beaten, in my view, twice in her last 3 fights by Delphine Persoon. The first time she fought Delphine, it was a clear win for Delphine Persoon. Even some of the Irish guys who heavily backed Katie Taylor. Even the likes of Carl Frampton, people like that, come out and said, no, I thought she lost. Fair play to Katie Taylor. She granted the film pursuing the rematch, right? Not that there should have been a rematch because Delphine won, but she granted her the rematch. It was a closer fight, but I thought Pursuing won, so did you, so did many people, right? So how on the strength of that, and then one other rudimentary win against a girl that was nowhere near her level anyway, how on the strength of that can you be Ring Magazine Women's Fighter of the Year and people saying you're the pound for pound best women's boxer in the world when you got someone like Clarissa Shields, yeah? You know what I mean? Jessica McCaskill, who beat previously undefeated the girl from Norway, you know what I mean? In a massive upset. How does that work? And again, it's vested interests. People putting forward a narrative that they know is false, but they're just doing it to try and create an illusion. You know what I mean? And it's wrong, man. It's damaging the sport.
Let me get some of these comments here. Zabul, thank you for your comment, bro. He's put, they act as if Haney doesn't exist. Call the resume all you want, but he's been mandated and he deserves a shot.
We don't.
Totally agree. You're 100%.
This is the thing, though, right? This is the thing that upsets me, is that why I've got such a problem with what Chris Mannix did. Because if you think about it, right, this could be a golden age for boxing in the lightweights. Because if you get these guys to fight each other, even if they have to take a loss here and there, by the time the smoke clears and we have the last man standing, people will look back at that and say this was a great era for lightweight boxing. That's how they will look back on it. But instead, all we're going to get is one guy. He's won certain fights, but he's refusing to fight the other guy. So we still don't know who's the best lightweight. It could be Ryan Garcia, but we need to know by account of what he's done in the ring, not what he's talking about on Instagram. And you know what I mean? And stuff like that. This is the problem. And it's not just in that weight. We're seeing it in the welterweights with Spence and Crawford. They're not fighting. You know what I mean? We're seeing it in the light heavyweights. Baturbiev and Bivol and all those guys, they're not fighting. And it's just repeated throughout. At least with the heavyweights, we're going to get a unified champion that, you know, very few people will be able to dispute who is the heavyweight champion in the world. So fair play to Fury and AJ if they manage to get that deal done and get in the ring, man. But that pattern needs to be repeated throughout boxing. And at the moment, it's not even close to being done.
Let's go through. We've got some more comments here. You need to get through these. Conscious of time as well. We nearly time to wrap up. But Mohammed Ahmed, we'll carry on for another 10 minutes or so. But Mohammed Ahmed in the chat, he's put, guys, you're talking a lot of good stuff, but Haney is the same. Tank and Haney were both talking about who made more money on IG Live. All of these guys are not good enough right now. You know what? He's right, you know.
He's right up to a point. He was right. The first sentence about them on IG talking about who's got more money, who's got more chains, whose car's paid for, who's got indoor pool, outdoor pool. That was
what you do. What you're doing is, let me just say, what you're doing is you're fueling your fan base into saying, well, no, you knew what my guy said. He's got more money than him, and no, he don't deserve that. It was the same with like when Floyd was fighting. When Floyd was like, nah, these guys don't deserve me. The hardcore Floyd fans were like, yeah, nah, he don't deserve a fight. And you're like, yo, we want to see it though. Do you know what I mean? So is it the same sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is up to a point. Although I would say, like, I saw Ryan Garcia being very disrespectful to Floyd, saying, now, you know, I'm Floyd ruined boxing, but I'm going to change. How are you going to change it? Because you haven't even won a world title yet and you're already ducking. At least with Floyd, he established a body of work before, you know, I mean, you could lay that blame at his door, you know?
Shane said here, I feel like Haney has to blame Eddie Hearn, in my opinion. Then Mohammed Ahmed's gone and said, remember Froch ducked the rematch award. Conrad Boxing said here, they love women who are not too vocal. Well, yeah, I agree with that. I think a lot of people just dislike Clarissa Shields because she's vocal. You know, she's an outspoken, confident person.
I think it's more to do than that, but that's for another show.
Shane Willoughby's put here, what has Hearn done for all of his fighters outside of England? He ain't done nothing. Let's keep it real. He's failed.
Well, no, listen, I'm not admonishing Eddie Hearn from blame. He's done some quite reprehensible things in boxing.
Should Haney blame Eddie Hearn? Like what?
To say he has tried to make fights, but if these guys do their best to swerve Haney, then how much can you really blame Eddie Hearn? These guys clearly don't want it with Devon. And listen, let's be honest, man. If he wasn't very good, then I'm sure they wouldn't be ducking him. They'd be wanting to fight him. He's obviously got something about him that the other guys are fearful of. Ryan Garcia come out and said, I'll have that fight with Devon later. Now, when a guy says that, man, I mean, that's telling you something, isn't it?
He said he'll have that fight with Devon last. That's what he said, yeah.
That tells me that he's not confident of beating Devon. Well, if that's the case, then why are you fighting eliminators? If you know you're not ready for the top boys, why are you engaging in eliminators? What you should be doing, right, is building your career to the point where you have all these fights to put you in a position to fight the champion. Because like I said, once you reach champion status, there's no turning back. You're at that level, you got to take on all comers. Now, you fought yourself into a mandatory position for Devin Haney's belt, and now you're calling out a guy that's at a lower weight class. And because you're thinking that Tank's got a name, you think people are going to ignore that and say, oh yeah, but he's calling out Tank. You're calling out Tank because Tank is 5'5" and you're 5'10", and you think you've got a serious advantages over him. You should be calling out Devin. That's what real fighters do, man. You call out the champion. Now that you know what I mean, you fought yourself into the #1 position. That's what you do. You call out the champion. You don't look down. You know what I mean? You don't look at the weight below you. That's why I got kind of frustrated and pissed off with Chris Eubank. Why are you calling out Kell Brook? He's a
technically, he didn't call him out. I think he was asked about it. He was asked. They said Coogan said to him that Kell Brook was mentioned among names, and then that's when Chris Eubank Jr. responded to it. So he didn't really call him out, but I think it's because he was dissing Brook, and then Brook responded. That's why people are like, oh, well, what, Eubank and Brook then? But I don't think Eubank, he didn't actually directly say, yeah, I want Brook.
Okay. Shane, why are you blaming Eddie Hearn? You should be blaming Ryan Garcia.
He's saying here, big up Zappel as well. He's put, yes, you guys are right. Shane's basically said he couldn't get a big fight for Andrade. So he's not just talking about Haney. He's saying Andrade, Hunter, Bivol. He said Mikey or Haney. He hasn't made one big fight since signing to the zone, especially Andrade. That's been especially Andrade.
Again, Andrade's been calling out the likes of Golovkin and Canelo and stuff like that. Where I have a little bit of sympathy with Eddie Hearn is that he can't force these guys like Canelo and Ryan Garcia to take the fights, can he? He can't.
The Andrade fight wasn't his fault either, because that fight with Billy Joe was basically made. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, the way it looks, yes, he hasn't put these big fights together on the zone. We know he was pursuing to try and sign up some of these guys. But I thought that was rather naive of Eddie Hearn. He was trying to go after a load of PBC guys to sign them up. And he thought he could just push some money in front of them and they were going to sign up. It's a lot more complicated than that, because these guys are tied into contracts. And from what I understand, a lot of them are very satisfied with the way Al Heyman looks after them. So I think Eddie Hearn probably underestimated that situation a little bit. But I still feel that he could have pushed the boat a bit further. So yeah, up to a point, Shane is right. But you cannot force, Eddie Hearn can't force Ryan Garcia and Teofimo Lopez to fight Devin Haney. He can make it, but if they intent on swerving Devin, then that's what they're going to do, and that's what we're seeing. You've said yourself a minute ago that Ryan Garcia, this guy who, you know, he's calling out Floyd, I'm going to fix boxing because Floyd destroyed. What you're doing is way worse than Floyd ever did. Look at Floyd's career. Look at some of the big names he took on and beat. You know what I mean? From Pacquiao to Cotto to De La Hoya to Diego Corrales. You know what I mean? His record is littered with champions. You know what I mean?
And Zabel's basically said it here. He said it right here. He said people forget Floyd was a 4-division champion before. Yeah, that's what people forget that.
What Ryan Garcia said about Floyd, and listen, I'm not a fan of a lot of what Floyd does outside the ring. But inside the ring, man, that guy was a genius. And some of the names on his record, you know what I mean? Some of the fighters he's fought are guys that Ryan Garcia will never aspire to be. So he needs to take Floyd's out his mouth real quick. You know what I mean? And stop that shit, man, because that's very disrespectful what he's doing. And again, why is he doing that? Because the likes of Chris Mannix blowing smoke up this young man's ass. You know what I mean? This is what happens when the likes of your Chris Mannix and your Max Kellermans and people like that with a microphone telling these guys that they're better than they are, blowing smoke up their ass, telling them, oh yeah, you're the cash cow. Why? What, because you got several million Instagram followers? Yeah, good for you. That's social media. What has that got to do with boxing? Is that going to parlay into pay-per-view buys? We don't know yet because he's not a pay-per-view star. You know what I mean? You don't know how many, a lot of those girl fans he's got, are they going to buy the pay-per-views? We don't know yet, do we? So, you know, it's
Well, listen, man, it's been another explosive podcast, man. We're at the 1 hour, 10 minute mark, so we kind of got to wrap it up now.
I could go.
Listen,
trust me.
We got comments here, man. We still got comments here to get through. I'll quickly get through these and then we'll wrap it up. Shane here, we're gonna have to get Shane back on, but he said ever since he signed Triple G, he had both Triple G and Andrade, and he had Triple G fighting guys from the pub. Zabel said it's a shame that Andrade can't get a big fight, and then Shane said again, I'm not saying Ryan isn't to blame, but I guarantee if he was at Top Rank, he would have got a big fight. Haney shouldn't have had any loyalty to no one but himself. And then Conrad's put here.
The problem I have with when Shane makes comments like that is that you're making excuses for ducking. And that's what I don't like. You know what I mean? As fans, we shouldn't allow these guys that get out clause to say stuff like that. You know what I mean? When I go online and I see people saying things like, yeah, Errol Spence should get 60-40 because
just
sickens
you're
me.
Getting the money.
You're going to allow your admiration for Errol Spence to prevent you seeing what would be one of the best fights in boxing right now, because that's basically essentially what you're doing. You are providing these fighters with the reasons to duck. This is why they do it.
This is the problem with fanboys, though.
Come and say, yeah, the fans said I deserve 60-40. You know what I mean? That's what happens, man, when as fans and commentators and people in the media, when they're allowing this stuff to go on, and fighters are very happy to take advantage of the situation to suit their own ends. You know what I mean? Teofimo talking about going to Australia to fight Kambosos, yeah? When you could fight Devin Haney for all the belts.
Conrad's here saying Ryan Garcia wants to retire from boxing at age 26. It makes me wonder how serious he is about all of this. Well, I guess you could look at it both ways. Maybe he might want to get all the fights he wants now and then cash out. But then, I mean, I don't know. Like, you hear that a lot from boxers, man. They say, I mean, Amir Khan said he was going to retire at 30. He's 34 now. He's still fighting. David Hayes said he was going to retire at 30, 31, 32. He fought all the way until 37.
Because their careers don't actually pan out the way they want it to.
So it never really goes out to exactly what they plan, is it? Not many, anyway.
Because they're speaking in an ideal world. Ryan Garcia is probably thinking, I'll have 2-3 fights, make millions, and then I'll retire undefeated. You know what I mean? We all know that boxing doesn't necessarily work that way. I've heard Tyson Fury say many times he was going to retire by now, and he's still fighting. And I would imagine he'll keep fighting for after the AJ fight, no matter how much they earn. You know what I mean? Because number one, boxing is a very addictive sport for those, especially those who contest in it. You know what I mean? So it's very hard when you've been a pro fighter all your life. You're a long time retired when you do retire, man. Which is why we see so many of them coming back to the ring. We see guys like Tyson talking about a third fight with Holyfield, 50 odd years old. Those guys should have been retired about 30 years ago, and here they are talking about a third fight with each other. Ridiculous. So I wouldn't take what Ryan Garcia says too seriously, man. Let's see how his career pans out. Like I said, man, I like Ryan Garcia as a boxer. I just don't like all the bullshit around him. And it's not all his fault. Some of it is definitely his fault. But then he's young and impressionable. And if you've got a guy pushing a microphone in front of your face after you've just beaten Luke Campbell and you're on a high, and he's telling you, oh, Ryan, you don't need to fight this guy or that guy. They need to come to you. Then you can choose which one you want to fight. You're the shot caller. You're the man. You're this. You're that. Well, he's bound to react in a very arrogant and narcissistic way, which is exactly what we're seeing. The same thing with Teofimo. Before the Lomachenko fight, I was actually a big fan of Teofimo Lopez. He was talking that talk, talking that shit. I want to fight this, I want to fight that. It's the takeover. Now I'm calling it the makeover with makeup. You know what I mean? Because he you know what I mean? He's not interested.
What are you hating on Teo, man? What are you hating on Teofimo for?
I'm not hating on him, man. I'm just calling out on the bullshit these guys do. You know what I mean? And these guys need to be called out.
Yeah. Well, listen, man, we'll wrap it up here anyway, man, because obviously, like, we are over the hour mark. So I mean, plenty to discuss. I mean, for there to be no fights at the weekend, man, we did an extra longer show. So
you know
listen,
what?
man,
The people in the comment section, man, put it in the comment section. Do they think I'm being harsh on Teofimo and Ryan Garcia? Because I think that boxing at the moment, we have a big problem with this. You know what I mean? That's the three-headed monster right there. Ducking, cherry picking, and peg taking. Three of the biggest ills in boxing right now.
Yeah, we'll get the comments, man, and we'll answer some of them in the next show. But we have to leave it here, man. Big up Jeff, who's just joined. He joined right at the end of the show. He's put, I've officially crashed the party. It was good having Jeff on last week, man. Wicked show.
Big up Jeff TV. Yeah. Be interested to hear what he said, man. He's an astute student of the game.
We'll get his feedback for sure, man. Zabel as well has put, this was a great stream, fellas. I've subscribed and we'll tune into the next one. Big up Zabel, man. It was good having you here, man. Good to have your questions as well. But listen, man, we're gonna have to wrap it up here. You know what I mean? We'll wrap it up here. Leave your comments and we'll reply to them even after the stream. And we'll see you guys next week, man. Laurie, do you just want to wrap it up?
Yeah, man. Listen, man, thanks for having me on. I always enjoy coming on. You allow me to be forthright and honest, and that's exactly how I feel, man. You know what I mean? I'm going to call out these guys when they need to be called out. I love the sport, but I hate seeing some of the stuff that's going on at the moment. And like I said, in boxing at the moment, man, we have the three-headed monster that we need to chop it down. Ducking, peg taking, and cherry picking. Three-headed monster. Let's get rid of it in 2021.
Big up, man. Well, you guys, we'll catch you guys next week. I'll be back on the live on Sunday. And yeah, man, we'll keep it cracking, man. Big up Jar Bunny as well here. He's put great stream, guys. Love the honesty from Laurie. We'll leave it there.
Respect Jabi.
All right, man. Peace out, everybody. Have a good evening.